Hello, my name is Eliza de Vries, and I am an evolutionary astrologer. I also work as a healer, a medium, and with animals, and I'm also an artist. But today I wish to don the hat of the intuitive and the evolutionary astrologer in order to address what is a rare and powerful occasion for us on December 14th, when we are going to have a solar eclipse, and it's going to be a full solar eclipse, which means that the north or south nodes of the moon are exactly within 2 to 3 degrees of being conjunct the sun and the moon on that day. And so there are going to be some incredible parts of the world, not in the United States, more in Europe and Asia, where the sun is going to be fully eclipsed. It's going to be exciting, but most of all, what I wish to talk about is the energy of the eclipse and what that means to us as a body of humanity and for Mother Earth. I always like to give thanks to all of you that have tuned into the channel, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Please leave your comments. I love to read them. I like to hear what you think about what's going on in our world right now. It's been a very powerful year of cleansing and releasing, and a lot of human suffering, and a lot of people have physically left their form either through the pandemic or other routes. And we've been going through a lot of mourning of what was. It's kind of like you would look at life and you would say, we're in the time of a new creative explosion on the earth into a new way of life. And what happens when there is new birth? The new birth is a cataclysmic effect. New birth does not come about softly and sweetly. Even giving birth to a child, there's a tremendous contraction within the female form, which gets greater and greater and greater. And at the moment of birth is at its greatest moment of pain, which is then relieved by the release and the birth beginning. So what I feel may occur in the United States specifically is we are heading into a new birth for the country, not an overnight birth, but I feel this solar eclipse and the winter solstice on the 21st, when Jupiter will conjunct Saturn in Aquarius for the first time in many hundreds of years at 0 degrees. We are entering a new era. When we enter new eras, there are growing pains. There is a past fighting against what the future wishes to bring in. And there'll be those that are, so there's an intensified polarization at the time of birth. And the birth being that we want everything to stay in the baby's in its womb and resting and sleeping, and then all of a sudden it's thrust into a birth canal, and then it comes out on its own, raw, new to the world, crying, feeling the lack of the surrounding of the comfort of the mother, and is into a new life. So what I feel is going to be going on Monday, we're going to have the sun, the moon exactly conjunct. That's what a new moon is. When it's conjuncting the south node in Sagittarius, there's going to be a lot of, and that whole sun, moon, Mercury is also going to be pretty close up there in Sagittarius to the sun and moon. All of that is going to be squaring Neptune. So you have noticed as we've moved toward this square to Neptune over the last few weeks, an increasing emphasis on delusionary thoughts, belief systems, actions, and outright lies. A feeling of greater polarization, people, really wanting to address the truth. What is the truth? And people on both sides feeling that they have the answer to the truth. So there's been, I feel that's what's going to come over this next period of time as we give birth to a new America, a new president, a new whole set of circumstances, plus what we're dealing with right now with COVID, with the new administration, with the violence, that there may be an escalation of confrontation in the country, and we may actually see acts of violence because we are at a place of mentality where there's very high judgment and non-forgiveness. And those two ingredients, when people are holding to strong belief systems and thinking they have a monopoly on the truth, it can lead to head-butting and ultimately even could lead to physical violence, which I think is possible over the next month as Mars moves up again to square Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter. And that's going to happen over the next 6 weeks. So we're coming into the new administration on the 20th of January with a very strong Pluto force, because Pluto is and a strong Saturn. The Sun is actually going to be conjunct Saturn on the day of the inauguration. And so it's going to be it's a very karmic inauguration. And if you think about it, that this will be the 46th president. The 45th president was represented by 4 plus 5 equals 9. 9 is a very karmic presidential administration. So the example of rebellion and the example of delusion and the example of racism and the rearing of the head of materialism and self-interest and self-absorption, all of that was accelerated and exacerbated by the 9. We're moving now into a whole new cycle. 46 equals a 10, which is a 1 plus a 0. The 1 plus the 0 in numerology is symbolic of the leader, a new era, 1 in the cycle of 9, and the 0 spirit. So a 10 is a very spiritual number. So a 4610 for the next administration is a sign of more true essence of spirituality coming into the hearts and minds and souls of people. And I do feel, I've said this since I did my first video on Joe Biden back in March, that I felt that he had the opportunity to be one of the greatest presidents in history, simply because he's walking into the most fraught, traumatic period of the country, similar to FDR, only even worse with the pandemic forming part of it. So I had a reading with somebody last week, and they were asking me about the government and Joe Biden and what did I see. And when I closed my eyes, I saw him surrounded by a huge hierarchy of higher realm, higher vibration, ascended masters and guides and beings of the highest light, beings from all forms of expression on earth that were wishing to guide him and wishing to guide the administration, because as America goes so goes the world. And so this choice, this step forward, this rebirth of our nation is being supported by thousands upon thousands of angelic presences. Not because he's the angel and the other one is the devil, but because the choices he makes will be of huge importance to not only humanity, but to the planet itself, to all living creatures, to our human survival. So they are incredibly engaged in what is going on the earth right now, and have brought forth a lot of light and a lot of upliftment and a lot of energetic protection to the president-elect, because there is more polarity out there, the opportunity or the intention for violence or ruining of the inauguration and his presidency is accelerated and magnified many times. So he's receiving a lot of help. And as I said before in my last video about praying for President Trump, that was an intention to set light around him, that he would not make disastrous moves that would in turn affect not only himself and his own family, but affect the American people, which in turn would affect the world, or start a war, or as he has done, just completely ignore the number of deaths through the pandemic. So we have to stop focusing on his every action and word, and instead send light and upliftment in every moment to whomever is leading, whomever is affecting the many in a position of power. So this solar eclipse on Monday is going to be extremely powerful to because it's squaring Neptune, and because in Los Angeles the solar eclipse is sitting in the 12th house of Neptune. I would say the strongest influence on this solar eclipse will be Neptune itself, which will be in a direct square to the sun, the moon, and Mercury, with all the planets sitting in the house of Neptune, with a Capricorn ascendant and Pluto sitting right on that ascendant. So to me, this is feeling for those on the West Coast in the Pacific Standard Time, that this will be an especially huge effect and shift for the West Coast of America over the next 15 to 16 to 18 months, which is the duration of the impact of the energies of a solar eclipse. What I feel that we are going to be looking at too is Pluto is going to be exactly square Eros it has been for the last year. It will be, was in 2019, it will be now, and it will be in the future. And that's forcing us to search for a new way of life. We are sitting at a crossroads, and in a state of crises in consciousness at this time, individually and as a humanity and as a country and worldwide, and our earth, our oceans, our creatures. So it's being, I wanted to draw some soul cards on this eclipse. I wanted to put the astrology aside now that we've sort of delved into it a little bit. Mostly I wanted to go off intuition and what is the effect right now going to be for. First, I'm going to look at individually, how is this solar eclipse going to affect each of us individually at a soul level? What should we be focusing on? And it's also really good because the solar eclipse is going to create a birth in your chart of new way of truth, a new way of dropping judgment, a new way of achieving peacefulness within, and a sense of forgiveness. I was thinking a lot about forgiveness because with judgment we really need forgiveness, and we are all so prone to judgment, and it really does take a monumental effort to stay in a state of judgment of others and of oneself. It's much easier to let go of what others are doing, to take a breath and just become more the observer of what others are doing, standing by and seeking ever deeper your own truth and your own capacity to love and to show mercy, than it is to live outwardly focusing on all the actions of what other people are doing, and to sit together and pass judgment and pour your energy into what others are doing all the time. So what is our individual gift at this time? Well, this is very interesting because this is the card of the Sword of Truth. He's holding in one hand the Sword of Truth. So we're seeking our truth with the right hand. In the outer world, we are out in the right side of our body, representing our outer participation with the world. We are seeking the truth. The left hand is an open hand of friendship, of kindness, of love, of brotherhood. So we are standing by our own integrity. Sagittarius is very aligned with personal integrity and the higher mind. And we are personally walking our own talk, living by our own truth, but we're also doing it without judgment and with kindness. The sword is in his hand, but it is not raised in a way of striking or attacking. A sword is the symbolic pictorial image of truth. So that is the individual message of the solar eclipse, that we are really awakening to what is the truth. And the kindness, the love, is that Neptune. With that square to Neptune, we can either go into the deceitful focus on the lies and delusion and become lost in a morass of conspiracy theories, or we can move to the higher octave of Neptune, which relates to universal love, to divine love, to what one astrologer calls multiversal love, because we call it universal, but really we don't even know our universe that much yet. We're still scratching the surface of our universe, and we only are within the realm of what we can personally discover. So my feeling is that we're going to look at a lot of moral issues right now. And people say, well, we don't really know the difference between right and wrong. It's taught to us. And yes, we are taught a lot of wrong things. We are taught a lot of misguided things that are taught to us with good intention by our parents. But as we grow up, we realize that some of those things are things that they might not have learned yet, and that we have to relearn or rediscover ourselves, or that doesn't exactly resonate with our soul. So there's a lot of what is right and wrong, and it's always been my firm understanding that we do have within us from childhood, an inherent sense of right and wrong. Which is why, as very tiny children, we cringe at harsh words, loud voices, cruelty, discordance. We feel a natural affinity to all of life. We pick things up, put them in our mouth, explore. It's all wondrous. It's a big, wide world out there, and we are approaching it with innocence and an adventurous spirit. So part of that Sagittarian energy is perhaps we need to explore more within our own beings, our own adventurous spirits, and understand that this new world that we're entering, we will enter it with so much more creativity, joy, and a sense of fantastic openings if we are willing to be adventurous and to get out of our stagnation and to try new things, live a new way, take another street when you drive, go to a different coffee shop, talk to a stranger, explore a new philosophy of life, learn to dance, tango, do things that pull you out of yourself. And what you'll discover is that these hidden valleys within yourself of the many lifetimes that your soul has led will revel in that. Today I was posting on my page the picture of a lotus, and in spiritual society, the lotus is always considered to be the 1,000-petal lotus on our head, opening to our higher consciousness. And I said, what if the lotus isn't that? What if the lotus is a wild wench wanting to dance and stamp her feet in the streets and sing loudly? In other words, let's take away our perceptions of things and look at life anew. Let's experience the people we know anew. Let's experience our children, our parents, our family, our friends with new eyes. Let's listen to them in a new way. So I used to do this thing with my children where I would come down to breakfast and say, I'm going to pretend I don't know who these children are, and I'm going to experience them in that exact moment. And I would have these amazing mornings with my children, breakfast time with my children, where I saw all these traits in them that I had kind of categorized them out of them or seen them through a different lens. And it's a really wonderful thing to do with people, because what we see is what we get. What we anticipate is what occurs. What we expect comes back to us. Not always the way we hoped it would, but it's like we limit ourselves by expectations, by preconceptions of people. So the Sagittarian solar eclipse is a great time to experience life anew, to experience yourself anew, to redesign your hair, your house, your home, to toss some things out, to do some wild things, to get out of the rut, right up to the last breath of your life, to live it with an adventurous soul. For the country. So, here what we were talking about. This is the card of rebirth. This is the card of the Kundalini awakening. This is the card of consciousness awakening. If you look above the head, there's a light coming out at the top of the head, and the serpent is representing the Kundalini energy being released from the base of the spine and moving up the spine in a spiral movement to the brain and opening the higher mind to great spiritual consciousness, to great revelations. So this is what's going on in the country right now. We are about to experience, and some have already moved into this territory, a new experience of life, a wonderful new rebirth. But as we said before, with rebirth, it's not always easy. It's as we search for this new way of life and go through this consciousness crisis within ourselves, we find that we're moving into a whole new level of experiencing life, and life is not going to be as we knew it before. We're moving from a technological society into a more creative, unified experience of each other. And rather than putting all of our woes at the feet of the president or his administration, we're finding within ourselves ways to seek solutions within or within community. So I see a lot more growth of community. For the world, the same thing. A great awakening, a great illumination, many tears being shed, seeing beyond yourself. The eyes here are actually, if you look at the eyes here, they're actually looking inward. The eyes have seen so much suffering. The eyes have experienced the deep tears of the soul. The eyes are moving and looking at others with more compassion and mercy. So we're starting to look upon each other, and this will be the shift. As much as it's hard to see right now, this polarization which could come to a head and create violence is actually going to erupt into a new birth over the next years of humanity coming together to solve global issues. Countries no longer moving so much into despotism and isolation as unifying. You might even see the end of Brexit. You might see Britain again enter the European Union. You'll see our country, America, coming back to reunite with climate change, like climate accord, coming back to peace treaties, coming back to trying to solve the environmental issues, trying to globally solve the pandemic. So they're going, these monumental issues are instigators for unity. And the final card of the gift right now of this solar eclipse. What do we need to be mindful of right now? This is a magnificent card. This is a card that to be mindful of the inner illumination of the higher mind. To be mindful of our own innate wisdom, and that each of us have a gift of wisdom to share with the world, a unique expression of self that nobody else has, that comes from our soul, having lived a myriad of lifetimes, and that we are here to share and to form groups and to each bring their gift to the table to help solve the universal problems. I'm going to end there now. I would ask on Monday that you sit and write out what are your intentions right now for your own existence, for your own life, for your own family, for how to build more community. What could you offer? What could you contribute from your soul to help broaden the feeling of love, mercy, wisdom, and truth on this earth at this time? Write down about 8 or 10 things of ways you would like to contribute, and read it several times during the day. Put it under your pillow. Wake up in the morning, read it again for about a week or 10 days. And you're going to find that it's going to manifest, that you're going to set out a new pathway for your own existence. It's going to be very inspirational and more refined and more clear. Thank you. God be with you. May we all show more mercy, love, and express more authenticity and truth through our heart, our words, our thoughts, and our deeds. God be with you. Thank you.